All right, it's the Bourbon and Banter podcast, the most honest podcast in all of bourbon. We've got everything you need to drink curious right here, friends and neighbors. So if you're looking for unbiased, unfiltered opinions on the bourbon and whiskey world, this is your place to be. So sit back, grab a pour, and check your feelings at the door, because we're here to lay it out for you as only Bourbon and Banter can. Now welcome your hosts. You may find them in the bourbon aisle at your local liquor store, but you're also going to find them passed out in the discount candy aisle at Walgreens the day after Valentine's Day. That's right, their body makeup in February trends towards 51% corn and 49% dark chocolate. Here they are.
All right, here we go, folks. And Bob, you know, that image of us passed out on the floor, dressed like Cupid, you know, with the diaper, with the bow and arrow. I mean, that's enough to make me cry. I mean, people would cry. I'm sure they would, but I wouldn't give a shit. I got all the 75% off candy I can eat. That's what I'm doing there. Hey, if there's any talent agents out there looking for some new show content since we're still locked up, let Bob and I know. We'll do just about anything for cash.
Just about anything.
Just about anything. That's true. Bob will do more than I will. Anyway, podcast episode 11. Here we are, fresh on the heels of episode 10. I hope everybody's doing okay. We're at February 2021, which smells a lot like March through December of 2020.
Yes, it does. A little bit of new hope in the air, but it smells pretty close.
Well, the dumpster fire is still smoldering, right? There's a little bit of hope in the air. We'll see what happens. But, you know, that's why we talk about whiskey and bourbon, and we don't talk about politics, because it's hard to find the silver lining right now. Maybe in 6 months. We shall see. That being said, Bob, what the hell's in your glass today?
I've got a little Old Faithful, little OGD 114. Always
OGD
a favorite.
114. Nice choice. I'm sipping on a bottle of New Riff Single Barrel Rye.
There you go.
The monopoly that is Total Wine, our New Riff in Missouri, has finally been lifted, and it's being distributed out. So we got picked up this bottle when I was at our good friends Randall's Wine and Spirits. Picked this one up. It was on the shelf. The last one, I heard that the stuff was hitting the shelves there, and it was flying off, you know, because not everybody shops at Total Wine, right? So
that's right. A lot of people don't. A lot of people like to have recommendations that don't sound like horse shit, so they don't shop there.
That's right. No 2-star for us. We are sophisticated drinkers.
That's right.
Right. But, you know, I did a tour out there a couple years ago, put together a video about that, a nice video interview with the owners and founders, and toured the place. So if you're not familiar with New Riff and you haven't seen that video yet, head over to the website and do a search on New Riff, or go to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/bourbonbanter. Do a search. You'll find it there. Find out a little bit about what they got going on. Very excited about what they're doing, and it looks like Bourbon and Banter will be prepping ourselves to do a barrel pick with them this year also. So we've got that on the radar. So that'll be something to look forward to.
I remember that video. Yeah, you guys did a nice job. That's right when they opened. You were out there.
Yeah. I mean, well, they've been open for a while, but they had finally started releasing the stuff. And one thing that always made me really impressed with these guys is that when they launched, their business plan included not releasing any of their own whiskey until it met bottled and bond standards. And that takes dedication and some deep
It takes
pockets.
a lot of money is what that takes.
Exactly. So they did it right. And the single barrel rye, this is I think just a 4-year-old rye. So it's not bad. It's got great, you know, sort of that typical rye backbone that you like. You know, they hired former master distiller from MGP to help them get everything up and running. So it's definitely got that DNA in it, but it's pretty good. So we'll see what comes out. I think we're going to probably do a bourbon from them instead of a rye, but we'll see what they offer up and ultimately what the team decides to bring to market. But speaking of barrel picks, we've got quite a few coming up. The Bourbon and Banter team will be venturing down to Kentucky here in early March and stopping at a couple distilleries and picking several different barrels. So you guys, if you're on our email list, you will be the first to know when those barrels become available. But right now, let me read out what we are slated to pick. We are going to be doing a 1792 foolproof pick. Going to be doing a Four Roses single barrel pick. Then we're going to do Rebel Yell, an old Ezra pick, and a Yellowstone Black Label. We were going to do Knob Creek, but that's been postponed due to COVID, but the other ones are open, so we're going to take care of those. And then we're also participating in about a week or two in a local charity barrel. It'll be a private select from Maker's Mark, and getting some new samples in for a Woodford Double Oak, which is one of my favorites. And then we know mid-year we'll be looking at doing a Wyoming whiskey single barrel, which I'm super excited about. I know that's one of your ones you're looking forward to as well.
I am, absolutely. They're great barrels. We had a really good couple bottles from them a few years ago, and really enjoyed it. Very much a fan of what they're doing. So we really look forward to that. And then, of course, Pops, there's the single barrel proof Blanton's pick. So everybody's got to make sure that's going to be released on February 29th. February 29th.
It's for our Patreon members only to be on the inside track there, right? You and your sources.
Hey. Just watch out for it, folks. Watch out for it. Okay. Sometime maybe between March 31st and April 2nd, we'll put it out there.
There you go. Absolutely. Speaking of new things, Bob, I don't know if you noticed yet, but we launched a whole bunch of new content over on our YouTube channel this week.
Did you catch any of that? I did see that.
That's right.
Our very own queen of cocktails.
That's right, Erin Petrie. She's been doing a series on Instagram called It's 5 O'Clock Here, where she goes live and shows everybody how to make a different cocktail. And she's gracious enough to upload all of that content. I think she's uploaded so far about 30 different cocktail videos to the channel. And she's got a lot more to go, and is going to start posting them moving forward as well as she creates the new ones. So if cocktails are your thing, she's got a plethora of bourbon and whiskey cocktails, but also a little bit of everything else. So if you're into gin cocktails or you're into vodka cocktails, God forbid, we've got you covered. So stop on by. That's youtube.com/bourbon banter. And check out the playlist. It's at the top of the thing there. And let us know what you think and drop Erin a note. She'll be reading and responding to comments as well. And follow her on Instagram and get to know her cocktail stuff. She also does some cocktail classes. So if that's your jam, you definitely want to hit her up. Really glad to see that kind of stuff. And then we'll be putting some more of that on the website as well. So for me, I've got my old-fashioned, my Manhattan, my Boulevardier down. That's about my Kentucky Mule. That's my repertoire, but she does some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, my repertoire is non-existent. So, my cocktail is there's a glass and there's some whiskey in it. The end.
Fair enough. So, Bob, obviously the big thing coming up as I was, clued in by the plethora of email pitches I've gotten from PR firms is Valentine's Day. Just a couple weeks away, and it's going to be here. And I have to know, what do you and the missus have planned?
Well, we celebrate Valentine's Day every day. So I'm not going to let Hallmark tell me necessarily that on the 14th of February I have to go out and spend a shit ton of money on some overpriced shit that, So we enjoy Valentine's Day every day.
Okay. So that's a no. You're not doing anything special.
Every day is special.
I'm kind of with you. Manufactured holiday for sure. Hallmark used to be a client of mine from the day job years ago. And obviously they've done a very good job over the decades promoting that holiday and whatnot. And, hey, if that's your thing, you enjoy it, go for it. Obviously, if you've got a bourbon drinker in your life, best gift ever, bourbon. Real simple. If you want to throw some bourbon chocolates in there, give our friends at Art Eatables a call. They'll hook you up with something solid. But don't make it complicated. Maybe Erin will have a Valentine's Day cocktail. But other than that, I think really the best thing to do is to, I think we should all give a little support to Hallmark at this time of year. So I think you should get your favorite bottle of bourbon, your significant other, curl up on a nice couch, right? Have some food, maybe some pizza delivered, maybe one of those heart-shaped pizzas, and then tune into the Hallmark channel and then start a drinking game. And my favorite is the one that you and I were talking about is every time there's bad acting, drink. Now, the benefit of this is you'll have a nice dinner and you'll be asleep by 7.
Yep. Make sure you have a case of bourbon with you because you're going to need it to power through that. But the other thing is, in terms of retailers for Valentine's Day, would you all stop putting this shit out the day after Christmas We don't need to see all this shit the day after Christmas. Like, everything's cleared, and here's all the heart-shaped shit. Come on now.
Well, advanced planning and all. It'll be interesting to see with COVID. Obviously, it's always been a big night for restaurants. So that's the other thing I'll say. If you don't like our drinking game, maybe do a nice dinner, call up your local place that you normally get food for, order something nice, give them a little bit of business. That would be a really nice thing to do. So make that our official Bourbon and Banter call to action. Celebrate Valentine's Day by ordering extra food from your local restaurant and show them some support while you also have a nice dinner with whoever is your main squeeze this year.
You can add a little extra dessert to your order in the greater St. Louis area and just have it shipped to Pops and me, and we will appreciate that very much.
All right, we will taste it, tell you if it was good, and you can write a review. So, all right, well, that takes care of Valentine's Day. So we've done our commercial best here. I think that's good. Why don't we go ahead and pivot here, Bob, and dive into some whiskey headlines. All right, folks. Well, the big thing that obviously was announced this week was that MGP Ingredients will be acquiring LUXCO for $475 million.
$500 million.
Woo!
Ooh.
And,
oh, good Lord.
I love to see that for lots of reasons. First, LUXCO is a St. Louis-based company, so it's good to see a family-run company that's built this up over decades, have a good payout. And I know, anytime a family-owned business decides to sell, it's a tough decision, right? And I don't know their motivations and why they did it versus another sort of structured agreement, but obviously I hope they benefit from that greatly. But I think there's going to be a bright, shining future for that family as they continue as main stockholders in MGP as part of this arrangement. But really the market dynamics are what's important here for everyone in the bourbon industry. For many of you may not know that LUXCO has had a very, very long and successful relationship with Heaven Hill, with the Shapiro family. And all of the whiskeys you've been getting from them over the years have come primarily from Heaven Hill. Whether it's some of their older stuff that they've been releasing like David Nicholson or some of the new products that have been hitting the market, but even things like Rebel Yell have been produced. But, a couple of years ago, Heaven Hill, with their own challenges meeting growth and demand in the market, let them know that they were going to have to take them out of the production cycle, right? So eventually you have to get your own whiskey. So they opened up their own distillery. Lux Road Distillers down in Kentucky was developed, and they are on their way. They've got a beautiful distillery, great tourist experience, and they're putting away whiskey, but obviously that takes time and there's only so much capacity. So as the market trend for whiskey continues to increase and you need to push out new and different expressions and your main primary source for decades is going away, what do? Well, obviously you make a deal with a behemoth like MGP to fulfill that need. And it'll be interesting because at the same time, while that benefits LUXCO with increased capacity as well as aged stocks and a super huge diversity of mash bills, right? So they've got a great, as I would say, box of crayons now to draw from. Many, many more mash bills than Heaven Hill was producing. It also is a big shot in the arm for MGP, right? So they've relied for a long time on the market where they sell to NDPs, for people who are going to make their own brands, contract distilling. A couple of years ago, launched the Remus and Rossville brands, which are getting up to speed, but obviously aren't huge runaway successes in terms of compared to some others, things get in the market. So for MGP, it gives them a larger portfolio of whiskey products to play with as part of their family. It also gives them expanded distribution and presence on the shelves, which is huge, right? Because we all know you can make the best whiskey in the world, and if you don't have the deals to distribute it and get it out on shelves, it really doesn't matter, which is one of the things, obviously, with Remus and Rossville is a challenge for them as they continue to push that out nationwide. So this gives them a lot of reach, a lot of relationships, seemingly overnight to expand upon. So it'll be interesting how we combine the assets of both and do that. So will we start seeing some older age variations of things like Ezra Brooks or Rebel Yell that are pulled from MGP stocks, right? Will we see Remus and Rossville be able to get additional reach and volume because it's tied to the LUXCO brands and the sales volumes there? A lot needs to be worked out, and obviously the people who are sourcing whiskey from MGP probably have the biggest question mark. I did reach out to a couple people who we know are sourcing currently for their brands, and they've told me as of right now they're not concerned. There's no immediate impact on the availability of what they have, but as we know, anytime contracts come up for renewal, pricing can either go up or contracts can be changed and impact the flow. But anyway, I think most people in the space see this as probably potentially starting to slow down the output of barrels from MGP that are going to other brands. That said, they've got a tremendous amount of capacity, and they may not have to do that, or it may take a while before we see the impact. Bottom line, guys, great big news. Two great companies. Glad to see them together, and super excited to see what the sum of the parts becomes here going forward. Bob, any thoughts?
I was just surprised. This came out of nowhere for me. I saw that and it's like, wait, I'm just shocked that just boom, all of a sudden, because we both have friends with MGP and LUXCO being St. Louis based. So it just dropped and I was like, wow, okay, there's some good folks that we know.
Well, I think everybody, was caught off guard. We all kind of thought there were going to be some interesting mergers or acquisitions in 2021, but for one to happen that quickly in the new year and for this to be the one, it's a pleasant surprise. I mean, when you sent me the news release, you got it before I did. I was like triple checking that it wasn't a fake story because it just seemed out of nowhere. It wasn't a trust issue with you. I mean, you're the most honest guy in bourbon. I mean, all your stores are double, triple checked.
Well, hey, I pride myself on that, folks.
That's right. But I think, it's a good move for everyone. And I think if we take a look, the other headline was Nielsen put out a quick look at the wine and spirits performance in 2020. COVID was a challenging year. A lot of industries are in the dumpster fire that is that year. But spirit sales were up actually a little over 25%. And volumes were up nearly 20%, ending 2020. So obviously people have been drinking a lot and a lot more of it. American whiskey sales grew by almost 28% with volumes up almost 21%. So strong showing there. Prepared cocktails had a huge year. Tequila then were actually the best growth. They were up 54% and volumes were up 38%. So glad to be up there with that. Vodka, though, was the main loser. Their top share dropped dropped down 2.3 points down to a 23.9 share. And Scotch was also down. That was a little bit surprising. I don't know if that's tariff related or whatnot, what's driving the expense of that down. But I'm glad to see American whiskey and bourbon going strong. So keep up buying, folks. They'll make more. That's what they tell us. And if we could just get the big guys to make more of the stuff we really love and quit playing games with allocation, I'll be even happier. Now, unfortunately, we're going to get more bourbon. We're drinking more of them. An interesting thing has happened. So if you guys go out and you buy whiskey, right, typically you're going to get a bottle of whiskey, 750 milliliters, right, standard bottle on the shelf. But a lot of brands in other markets say standardized around the 700 milliliter bottle. Well, it just got approved now that in the U.S., the distilleries can start bottling booze in 700 milliliter bottles. So allowing them a lot more flexibility. They no longer have to run a line for 750 in the U.S. and a 700 to export, right? So if you think about it, if you're a small to medium-sized distillery and you have to run your product for two different markets, you have to stop your bottling line, reconfigure, adjust labels, a lot of different stuff, even if you have the capacity and the budget to do so. So it really limits your ability to export. Now that we can have 700s, you can run one line, and the only thing you have to swap out is the label. So it makes it a lot easier. Now, the downside of this is what happens when Heaven Hill, for example, decides to start putting Elijah Craig in a 700 milliliter and make that the default size. So we're losing 50 mil, right, from the bottle. One could say, oh, look, our price will go down. But if history has anything to say about it, we call this, the industry calls this shrinkification, is we will basically pay the same, maybe even a little bit more for less. So stock up on your 750s. This is going to take a while to happen. This isn't happening overnight, right? People have stocks of bottles. They got to reconfigure. And not everybody's going to adopt this even over the next couple of years. But it is coming. So we're going to see some increases in price as it relates to the volume of whiskey you're going to be able to buy.
It'll get there. It's going the way of potato chips and cereal and everything else, it's now packaged, the same cost, but you're getting less of it. So it's coming. Little bastards are taking our last drink away.
Well, what I can't figure out is if everything is shrinking, why are we getting bigger?
That's a very valid point. You said shrinkification. I thought that sounded like a medical problem, but
Only when it's cold. Now, there is, once again, trying to bring a little ray of sunshine into this conversation, there is one little interesting thing. There could be an opportunity now that the 700 milliliter bottles are allowed in the U.S., we could start seeing more things from other markets, other countries come in, greater variety. Because once again, for them to come into the U.S. market, if a Scotch release was coming in, right, they had to put it in a 750. They can't put a 7 out in the U.S. So now if we can accept that, we may see things hitting our shelves from other countries in other categories of spirits that we weren't here before. So if you're drinking in some of those categories, or you're really adhering to our Drink Curious mantra and you're trying Scotch or rums or Irish whiskeys, there may be some interesting stuff to try on the shelf as well. So we'll see how that reciprocates from a import into the U.S. as well.
So all of that special stuff, the stuff that goes overseas that we wish we could drink, all the bourbons, we're going to have more stuff that we're never going to fucking see.
Well, I can dream, and, I think about things like Blanton's, right, is, that majority of the Blanton's goes overseas. Does this change anything? I doubt that it will, but a man can dream, right? So anyway, distilleries just, hear us out. We understand you're going to shift in time, and we understand we're probably not going to save any money. Just get us more of the good stuff, right? Let's get these allocation games solved. That would be greatly appreciated.
You want to get them solved, just put us in charge of allocations. Solved.
That's right. That's right. We'll take care. As soon as we drink our fill, we will make sure everyone else gets theirs.
We're going to go by the douchebag principle. If our douchebag meter goes off, you're not getting the fucking bottle.
There'll be a lot of thirsty people, Bob.
There's going to be a lot of thirsty people. That's
thirsty
right.
People. Well, there's one guy who's not thirsty, and this is like worlds colliding. This title, I love this. Man arrested after trying to steal floating bar. I'll give you one guess what state this happened in, Bob.
Well, I'm going to guess it probably happened, floating bar, probably in the Ozarks, right?
No, close. It actually happened in Florida, because that's where all the Hoosier stuff happens.
Yeah.
But it did involve a Missouri man from Independence, Missouri.
Well, of course.
So
see, I wasn't far off there. Yeah.
So evidently, he stole a floating tiki bar from the place, and was found passed out in the floating bar the next day. And things like the cup holders and things had all been melted. Apparently, it got a little cold out in the open water, and he started a fire in the cup holders and other parts of the ship trying to stay warm. So he not only stole it, but he defaced and vandalized it because he was a drunk-ass idiot who decided that stealing it would be really great. It's like, it's bad enough when you steal a car, right? Like, where are you going to go with it? You go for a joyride, right? Okay, at least you have a plan. You're going to joyride it, you're going to ditch it in a bad neighborhood, you're going to flee. Where are you going to ditch a tiki bar? I mean, you got to come back to shore. Well, apparently not.
It doesn't matter. No matter what shuts down with COVID, the stores may shut down, the bars may close, but stupidity is open 24/7.
That's true. But I'll tell you what, to everybody listening today, if you've got a story like this, whether it involved you, or a first cousin, a second cousin, a divorced an ex-spouse, wife, whatever, let us know. Drop us a note, podcast@bourbonbanter.com, and share your story. We'll read a couple of these on the next episode. I want to know, what stupid shit have you done from drinking? I mean, I think of us as, we're in the confessional here, but we're not going to keep it secret. So open door confessional. Let us know the stupidest thing you've done with whiskey or someone you know. I'm not going to set up an 800 number. Remember the old love line where people could call in and leave stuff and they put it on air? We're not quite there yet. But the funniest stuff, we'll do something with it, and you'll get your 15 seconds of internet fame. We guarantee you.
I'll say right now, though, we're going to abstain from sharing fellow team members' stories on this particular portion. I'm not going to embarrass any of our fellow writers.
No,
so you all are
we'll
safe
save
right
that.
now.
We'll save that for like a Patreon event, right? We got to donate.
We're not going to tell you what Brent Joseph did 3 weeks ago, and he's, you know.
No, it'll grow back. So we're going to add in something here. We're doing this podcast right now. We're still adhering to a monthly schedule, so a lot happens. So we thought we'd just quickly, anything that comes across our desk that we think is new and noteworthy that you want to check out from a whiskey release. You know, a lot of people are out there talking about releases, and, you know, we write the reviews of the stuff as we get it. But if you're looking for a couple things to check into, we're just going to throw up a couple things that may be of interest to you. We haven't necessarily tried these, but we're curious as part of our Drink Curious mantra. So the first one is Chattanooga Whiskey is releasing 2 experimental releases. Their experimental batch 017 and the experimental single barrel 109. The experimental batch 017 is actually apricot brandy barrel finished. It's available at the distillery and online. And its retail price for $69.99. So once again, if you like finished whiskeys, you might want to check this one out. I really like what Chattanooga's been doing with their high malt products over the last 18 months, and I'm sure this one will be just as interesting. And then they've got an experimental single barrel, which is 109, and that comes from a collection of single barrels hand-selected by the distilling team. And each barrel utilizes a multitude of grains, barrels, techniques, and unique ingredients to create uniquely one-of-a-kind spirits. So it's coming out of a rare 25-gallon half cask, but apparently it's got some really great characters and something that you might want to check out. That's going to be available as well for $7.50 a milliliter bottle for the same price as $69.99. So if you're a fan of anything they've done and you're looking for something different, check it out. There's very limited supplies on some of those, so it could be gone already. Our apologies, but definitely something to keep your eye on. And I believe they've got some other stuff coming out, maybe Q2, Q3 that you'll want to be aware of. So sign up for their newsletter as well so you're one of the first people to know when it comes out. Another brand is coming out. The former Russian Standard USA CEO has launched Coalition Whiskey, which is releasing the first ever 100% rye whiskey finished in Bordeaux wine barrels. So there's been kind of this growing wine finishing stuff going on. So these are going to be Bordeaux barrels. And I can't speak French. I can't pronounce French. So I'm going to really butcher these. So, Bob, if you speak French, you can make fun of me. But I'm going to
make fun of anything French. Doesn't matter what it is.
Okay. There you go. Fair enough. Finished in Margaux Barriques, Paulec Barriques, and then Sauternes Barriques barrels. So those are going to be coming out. And they're going to be, a couple of them are going to be at $90, the barrel proof at $130. But what they're doing, which I think is kind of cool, is they're also releasing the base whiskey. So they're taking the whiskey and releasing them with the barrel finishes, but they're also going to sell the rye whiskey as is. So if you want to buy that and compare how the wine barrels affect the flavor, you'll have that ability. Now, what I think would have been cool, and once again, not in it for the profit because it's not my brand, but to say if you buy one of these finished bottles, you get like a 4 ounce of the rye that hasn't been finished. That I think is the way to do it instead of making me buy a whole nother bottle of whiskey, to try that out. But if you're into wine, you're into different cask finishes. I know that's not usually your thing, Bob. This is one to keep on your radar.
There's a couple that I've enjoyed, but I don't speak the French either, so I have no idea. I only know basic French words like "I surrender."
Well, everybody knows that. You're born with that. And French fries. And then Ezra Brooks, going back to our friend at LUXCO, Ezra Brooks has introduced the new Ezra Brooks 99. So this is a proofed up or elevated to 99 proof charcoal filtered for smooth mellow finish. The new Ezra Brooks 99. So if you like that, check that out. Like I said, we're going to be doing an old Ezra pick ourselves here soon, which I'm sure, since we're picking it, will kick this one's ass. But until then, because we don't know when we will actually get our barrel, check this one out if you're a fan of Ezra Brooks. Anytime a stalwart brand like this ups their proof and gets higher and higher, it's something to check out. Because if you've already kind of liked the flavor profile, adding some proof usually is going to create a richer, better experience. So something to look out. So those are just a handful of things we've seen. We're getting a whole bunch of things across our desk, and next podcast episode we'll share some more of those. But also make sure you go to bourbonbanter.com, sign up for our email list, and every time we put up a new blog update, a new review, a new press release, you'll be getting an alert in your email, so you don't even have to leave your armchair to check. It'll come to you. Click a button, you read it, you'll be informed. So that said, we're going to now turn it over to Bob because, once again, his in-depth investigation skills, his network of spies, has surfaced what is sure to be the talk of the town, at least for the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Ben. You know, my secret network has been coming through like gangbusters the whole time we've been doing this podcast, and this is one that when I heard about this, I said, boy, this is it'll probably please some people, but overall it might upset a lot of people, and that is that Heaven Hill is going to be pulling back production of Henry McKenna single barrel bottle and bond to quarterly as opposed to an ongoing year-long release. So they're going to do it 4 times a year because they're going to launch a limited edition McKenna that's a 13-year-old bottle and bond this fall for $149. So the reasoning behind it goes back to the life story of Henry McKenna. Actually, he's an Irish immigrant. He owned a flour mill, and he was a huge fan apparently of fall harvest time and of Halloween specifically. He would hide candy he hid candy all around his flour mill. You know, the children in the town would come and seek and find all the candy, and he continued to do it until one year. Now, this is the part that, you know, Heaven Hill wouldn't tell you, but, you know, that crack team of mine really got into it. So he continued to do that until one year, little Johnny Rotten Bastard, the only child of Helen and Heza.
Whoa. Heza? What kind of name is that?
Helen and He's a rotten bastard. That's the name, dude. I don't make this shit up, you know.
That's probably a French name that you're butchering. It probably
it could be. Anyway, you know, so little Johnny went missing during the annual Halloween seek and find, and I guess they found him a few hours later in the main warehouse, but he was urinating into the season's supply of cinnamon roll flour. So he's just taking a piss over all of this cinnamon roll flour. And McKenna was so upset not only at the act, but the massive financial loss he was going to take because he couldn't sell it, that he shut down the Halloween festivities. He never celebrated it again.
Probably kicked his ass, too, little Johnny Rotten.
Well, I would have, yeah. I mean, you know, little Johnny, you hear stories about little Johnny all the time, but, you know, this one takes kind of takes the cake, or the cinnamon roll for that matter. And, you know, so being the massive history buff and bottle and bond buff that Bernie Lubbers is, you know, he heard about this McKenna story. He wanted to do something to honor McKenna's love of the fall and remove the stigma around why he stopped celebrating Halloween.
Noble, very noble.
Very noble. Well, Bernie's a noble guy, you know. And so to add a post-COVID in-person element to the limited edition, Heaven Hill is going to debut a massive pumpkin patch on the distillery grounds. And then the limited edition McKenna bottles are going to be hidden in and around the pumpkin patch. So to make it, you know, they wanted to be a fun event for the whole family, kind of harken back to when the kids were running around the mill there. You know, the bottles are going to be boxed and sealed inside plastic jack-o'-lanterns that are going to be full of candy, marzipan candy to be specific, you know, for the kids. So 200 bottles are going to be on site in the pumpkin patch. An additional 12,000 are going to be distributed nationwide. So if they're the ones that are in the jack-o'-lanterns that are obtained on the distillery's pumpkin patch will be specially marked with green and orange wax, making them, you know, even more collectible. So in what they hope will become a Halloween tradition, the day after trick-or-treating at Heaven Hill, they're going to launch the remaining pumpkins with a trebuchet on a giant allotment of maturing McKenna barrels to add a subtle essence of pumpkin and to agitate the whiskey. So it's not unlike the gentle rocking experience that Jefferson Oceans experiences in a cranberry bog. So the pumpkin patched bourbon, they're going to release next fall of 2022. But hauling that thing, you know, pumpkins flying all over Heaven Hill, it's going to be a good time for everybody in the family.
Well, you know, I think I'm giving them free marketing advice, branding advice. I think it should be the McKenna Pumpkin Chunkin bourbon.
You know, I think the label would be fantastic for that. Yeah, the pumpkin chunkin' bourbon.
And have it in a box set. You get 2 glasses and a mini trebuchet, and with a barrel ice mold, and you throw the ice into your glass. I mean, fucking geniuses right here, man.
I'm telling you, it's just. I mean, I don't know. You know, I don't know where my folks keep getting this stuff, but I mean, they have been just, you know, crack at it, and right, ear to the
Crack
ground.
at? Did you say crack addicts?
I said crack at it.
Okay, it's a
They've
fine
been cracking
line.
at it. Yeah, it's a fine line. I'm sorry, pops. I'll use different wording. They've had their ears to the ground. But it's this one I was really surprised about. Now, the friends that I've told have been, yeah, they want to taste this 13-year-old bottle and bond, but they're a little upset. It's hard enough to find McKenna already, and now it's going to go to a quarterly release. So
Well, and I mean, two things. First of all, I like the 13 and the whole nod to clearly. I would suspect it's like a Friday 13th nod, right? So that's clever. But I mean, 149. I mean, let's face it. You and I are never going to get a bottle for $149.
no, not at all. Not at all.
But, and I'm sure the pumpkin chunkin version will be even more expensive. So I mean, hey, every brand's doing what they can to cash in. So it's only to be expected. I mean, Heaven Hill's kept a lot of other products reasonably priced, like Elijah Craig and whatnot, plenty of it. So I just hope they decide not to fuck with that one. Leave that one alone. Let us at least have one we know we can get whenever we need it. That'll be appreciated. Well, you're not paying your sources enough, so tell them that
man.
we'll send them some those tasteless hard candy hearts as a thank you.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in for the Bourbon News. If you've got a hot tip for us, drop a line at podcast@bourbonbanter.com. And if we use it online, Bob will blow you a kiss. All right, folks, welcome to the Craft Shoot. It's been a hot minute since we've done one of these, but if you're new to the Craft Shoot, this is where Bob and I will try a craft whiskey totally blind. Yes, that means that we have poured some samples. My wife has randomized them, and she gives us one to try each week. We have an envelope with the name of the lucky distillery, who will get our unbiased, honest, barrel strength feedback, if you will. So it's always interesting, and we thank the distilleries who don't file lawsuits after we do this. So those are the rules of the game. So, Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you. Quick thoughts on the nose.
I've got, it's a very sweet nose to me. Not a lot of depth, kind of light, but pretty sweet.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you're right. It doesn't have a lot of depth to it, so it's not going to be real old. But it also doesn't have that young, green, dusty smell of a craft place either.
No,
right?
it
So
does
that's
not. You don't get that ethanol that you typically get on a lot of these.
Right. So I would say young, but not super young. So that's nice.
I would say lower proof,
okay.
below 100.
Okay, it's got some good cinnamon baking spices in it. Not a lot going on. Just some sweet vanilla, some baking spices. Maybe 1.5 dimensional, maybe close to 2, but not really complex. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dive in.
Well, it continues on what I'm getting on the nose, in that it's pleasant. It's it's not. I got a little bit of pepper on the front of the tongue.
Okay.
Little sweetness, very, minimal finish, not a whole lot going on there. I mean, to me, this is just a pretty standard,
okay.
Kind of run-of-the-mill type of thing happening here. Yeah, I mean, it's bourbon. It's your classic bourbon flavors.
So I'm gonna taste it again here, give you my thoughts. So definitely forward on the cinnamon, kind of those types of baking spices. It's trying to pull out a little bit of dark fruit, a little rum, but it just can't quite get there. Rum and raisins type thing can't quite get there, and almost a little bit of banana on it as well. And the finish, I would go almost a medium finisher in mine, more of that caramel and spice. But once again,
I get more of that cinnamon on the finish.
Yeah, it's not overly complex. It's kind of one dimensional on that. But you know what? It's pleasant. It's sippable. And I'm gonna I've got a little bit of water here. I'm just, for shits and giggles, gonna add a little bit of water.
Yeah, I would drink this. I mean,
you drink that?
For what we've done with this segment, it's not, horribly offensive. Now, the price has yet to be disclosed. That could make it horribly offensive.
You may even find out it's from a place we don't like. That would be rude, though. We can't let that. I just add a little bit of water to it, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually works. Oftentimes I think adding water takes away from it, but kind of brings out a little bit of the sweetness and the spices in a way that works for me. I wouldn't drink it over the rocks. I think it would strip down too far with the rocks, but that's not bad.
You're right. It gets a lot sweeter on the palate.
All right.
So what is our craft whiskey of the day?
All right. So the craft whiskey of the day. Motherfucker. Oh, wow. Well, it's a big day on Bourbon and Banter, ladies and gentlemen. This is a whiskey called the Musician. It is a barrel strength bourbon.
That's barrel strength.
Right. 2 years old, if you can believe that. Mash bill is not disclosed, but it's rye, malted barley, and corn. And it hails from the distiller is Still Austin out of Texas.
Oh, my God, you're kidding me.
I am not kidding you. It is out of fucking Texas.
Holy shit. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. It's the first thing out of Texas that we haven't shit all over.
Wow.
We need to let these folks know that they have broken the Texas bad juju that we've had going on here, man. I can't. What's the proof on this?
The proof on this one is coming in at. Let's see here. My wife did not write that down, so I'm going to scan my shelf now and try to grab the bottle to see what the hell proof is on it. This one is coming in at 49.2 ABV. This is
so it's 98.4 barrel strength, 98.4 proof.
I think
so.
So,
gee, I wonder what they go in the barrel at.
Yeah, or maybe this.
That can't be barrel proof.
Hold on. I'm pulling up their website. Sorry, folks, for the technical difficulties. It's a straight bourbon whiskey.
This is what happens when you drink stuff live.
Yeah, right. 100% Texas grown corn.
Completely unknown.
Oh, this is interesting. So, I think that's their barrel proof. I think it is. You know why? All right. So this is interesting, and this may explain why this isn't like most Texas whiskeys. So they do something called slow water reduction. And in reading this, apparently what they do, it's a technique that is used in making cognac, where they gradually proof it down with water while it's still in the barrel. So while it's aging, they're actually proofing it down. So they put it into the barrel full proof, and then they water it down as it ages. And in Texas, where we know they have such intense heat cycles, right, and which makes so many of the Texas bourbons really rough edge and hot and spicy, these guys are constantly adding water down to get the flavor under control. And I mean, this is unlike any Texas bourbon I've ever had.
Yeah, that's nothing. Well, it's a rye though, right? It's not a bourbon.
This is a bourbon.
I thought you said rye malted.
No, it's rye, malted barley, and corn, but it's a I should say corn, rye, and malted barley.
When you led with rye, I figured that was the main grain.
So I think this might be cast strength because they keep watering it down to keep it under control.
Well, for 2 years.
Well,
it doesn't have all the harshness that you would expect from a 2-year-old whiskey.
No, exactly.
Well, you have redeemed yourself, state of Texas.
Wow, that's impressive. I'm almost getting, now that I've let that sit open a little, almost like a little juicy fruit on the front. Kind of digging that. Now, what's the price, right? Let me see here. Find out where to buy it. Pick up in our tasting room. Get it delivered today. By Total Wine. Let's see what Total Wine's selling it at here. Well, it's not available here. Let's see. I think the MSRP is $45.
Well, see, there you go. Look at that.
Well,
you got a decent price for a craft distilled, not sourced. It's their own stuff, right?
Yeah, it's their own stuff. So once again, when you think about what we tasted, right? If I told you it was $45 before you knew anything about it, you would have been fine. It's a little bit of a 2-year whiskey, $45, But once again, let's judge it by the taste, right? Because the taste holds up. Once again, I'd still rather have Four Roses retail single barrel at 45.
Yeah, I would too.
But what this means is these guys are onto something with this slow water aging. And what happens when it's 4 years old? What happens when it's 6 year old? I mean, if they can do it, or is that too long in Texas for that technique to work, right? Because, if they've proofed it down that much in 2 years, what happens in 4 to 6, right?
That's an interesting question. I mean, but, in looking at it, it's a craft distillery selling a $45 bottle. There are a lot of craft distilleries that don't sell bottles at that price point whose whiskey is not drinkable. And
that's very true.
These folks are doing it at that price. And I'm just floored it's from Texas. And it's that age, and it's that mellow. I mean,
Yeah.
this is really something. It's very, very interesting. And so our hats off to them. Texas wins today, ladies.
That's right. And, we'll need to get a formal review written up because this has been on our list. We haven't gotten to it. I would say go ahead and buy a bottle. I'd rate this as a buy. It's, like I said, it's not going to blow your socks off as amazing complexity, but I think it's worth an investment supporting what they're doing and seeing where they go next. So how about that, folks? Wow. Mark this day down.
That's not what I was expecting.
February 1st, 2021, the shit's turned around. It's all right. Well, now the gauntlet is thrown down for every other Texas whiskey. All right.
We know it can be done, folks, so now Texas has got to bring it.
So no more of these excuses about the heat and the hotness and all this shit because someone's figured that shit out, right? I'm looking at you, Garrison Brothers. Somebody's figured this shit out. So let's go. All right, guys. Well, that's the craft shoot. And like I said, this has been a really interesting one because Bob and I have gone on record of our dislike for Texas whiskey. And we've even got some emails after the last episode, constructive emails. So there wasn't hate mail. And we got a couple other things that are to be sent to us. Somebody's going to send us a couple Texas whiskeys. So now we got a benchmark to go up from. So let us know if you have other recommendations and want to get involved with submitting some stuff to us. Drop a line, podcast@bourbonbanter.com, and look forward to the next episode of the Craft Shoot. All right, folks, here we are. Bourbon Bullshit, the #1 bourbon podcast segment in all of the world, of all the known galaxy, the universe. Let's just face it. It's the most awesome podcast segment everywhere.
It is the most honest segment on the most honest podcast in all of bourbon.
And that's honestly speaking. Well, I'm going to kick things off. I know we have previously touched on the fact that we wanted 2021 not to have any more celebrity bourbon releases, but obviously the important people in the industry aren't listening to our podcast yet. So I got a press release the other day, and I had to read it 3 times because I was like, what the fuck am I reading? Apparently, William H. Macy has decided to launch a celebrity bourbon. You'll know him from movies like Fargo and shows like Shameless. Great actor, love him. Great character actor, weird-looking motherfucker, but really good actor, and I enjoy the stuff that he's in. But apparently he is involved with a distillery in Colorado, and that distillery would be Woody Creek Distillers. And they decided to launch a campaign with William, who is going under the moniker Willie Creeks as a musician, and he's released a music video to promote the whiskey, and also a series of YouTube videos, kind of like little life witticisms, if you will. And those are kind of amusing. I like the witticisms. But Bob, you saw the video, so I'm not going to mention I'm not going to give my point of view in the video because you're a professional musician and in that industry. But obviously what they've done, he's got an involvement with the distillery, and if I owned a distillery and was friends with him, I'd want to leverage him as well. He's played music his entire life, so he does play, and they're leveraging it. So I'm going to swing back from a marketing perspective in a minute, but I'd like you to to talk a little bit about their choice of him as a singer and creating this video and building this alter ego to promote the bourbon.
Well, first of all, shouldn't Frank Gallagher be putting out an Irish fucking whiskey, not a bourbon? I mean,
Fair point.
Come on.
Know your audience. Know your audience.
And you know that Frank Gallagher ain't going to be spending that kind of money on whiskey. So that's the other thing. But I saw it and I was like, oh God, here we go. Another one of these fucking actors that think they can sing. And, he's talking through the whole thing. And I will tell you this, you're not fucking Frank Sinatra. Don't talk. You can't get away with talking through the fucking song. Sinatra could, and he did it better than anybody else. This stuff to me was so overworked and so forced that it was just completely phony. So the minute I saw it, I'm like, get this shit. I usually have a 10-second, literally a 10-second period where I can identify whether I dig it or not. And I'm 99.9% right on with my judgment after that 10 seconds. This shit was not happening. I thought it was just a bad, as a musician, it was just horse shit overall. So, it was a hell of a marketing thing.
Oh,
they put some money into it, in terms to selling shit and selling it to people who are influenced by whatever's, the media is telling them to be influenced by. It's going to be great. But, I just think he probably just had to take, some attention away from Felicity Huffman, going to jail. Ooh. So they put him in front of a whiskey thing and,
Well,
either of that or he's got to do this to pay the Stanford bill or wherever the fuck it was they were going.
Well, so when I saw the news that he was being involved, I was like, it didn't make any sense. I mean, it made about as much sense as Terry Bradshaw releasing a bourbon, right? Because there wasn't this history, right? At least you look like when Matthew McConaughey was hired by Wild Turkey, I at least knew where he was from. Was like, all right, here's a guy who could, you wouldn't be shocked to hear that he drank some bourbon, right? William H. Macy never really struck me as that. And then I was like, okay, so let's check this thing out. Maybe he's been playing some music. A lot of actors do. You're right, they've got hobbies. But then the overly slick production value and stage sort of story of it, that's what rubbed me the wrong way about it. You're right. He's, we were talking about before the show about how, in the golden era of Hollywood, right, everybody who came through the studio system, they could act, they could sing, they could dance. They weren't necessarily great at them, right? And the ones who were great dancers started more movies with dancing. But everybody had to be able to do those things to be employable. And so he sings, most of it's spoken. He sings the choruses, much better than I can sing, but it's never someone that you would go out and buy their records from. The song is very produced. As you said, a lot of talking, but just from the moment he enters the frame and he's walking down the stairs, everybody's waiting for him. It's too much, right? I would much rather him sit around a fucking campfire and play his ukulele, and everyone else chime in, and that would have been a little bit more authentic. I even found a second video that he's done, which was kind of a fun thing about everybody wears pants, kind of like paying homage to the workers who put on their pants and still go to work with COVID. And he comes out of his house and he sits down and he starts strumming. And I'm like, oh, he's just going to sing on the porch. And then suddenly it's overdubbed with a studio production while he's still doing the same thing. And I just lost all respect for that. It's too much. And being in marketing, seeing that, you're right, this is for an audience. These are for his fans who would never try a whiskey. And once again, Woody Creek Distillers, good on them for the connection, right? It's going to be great for them. They're going to sell a lot of freaking whiskey as a result of this. I've never tried their whiskey. I don't know if it's good. So they're going to sell a lot of first bottles. This is going to be a lot of first bottles sold, which is the key. But at the end of the day, it's going to come back to whether or not it's good. But the question that I'm left with, okay, so you kind of touched on it with Felicity is, do you think there'll be a prison tour for Willie Creeks, his alter ego? Will he take the path of Johnny Cash and do a whiskey-soaked tour of America's prison system?
There may be one having nothing to do with Willie Creeks. Who knows? How much did grad school cost? I don't know. But
once again,
it's just not genuine, man. Right. It doesn't come across as genuine, and I don't want to deal with shit like that. That's the one thing you mentioned, McConaughey. Whether you like him or don't like him, you felt that his thoughts on Wild Turkey were genuine.
Right.
And so that he wasn't putting on something, right, for you there.
Right. So, and if it is, then he's a much better actor than William H. Macy with his Willie Creek character. Because once again, they manufactured it to present it. nothing changed with Matthew, right? He is who he is, like him or not. So, you know, I'm hoping someone will send me a Mercy sample of Bradshaw's bourbon so we can dive into that, just see what the fuck that is about. But check it out. You know, you can go and type in William H. Macy in Google and bourbon or Willie Creeks, and you'll find the video. And let us know if you agree with us on that overproduction value, or maybe you find it entertaining. Once again, we are only two opinions of many out there. But for us, it's a hard pass on the marketing effort. Love to try the whiskey and let it stand on its own merits. So that's kind of where we net on that. But the question will be is who's going to be the next frickin' celebrity that's going to release something this year to piss us off. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure it'll come soon.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a celebrity that would release something that we'd actually want to try, and I just can't think of it. You know, I can't think. It's like who's out there that we're waiting for that celebrity whiskey that just has to drop. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, you know, because you and I don't follow celebrities in that way, probably none.
If Steve Austin put a whiskey out, I'd want to try it. If Stone Cold put out a whiskey, he's got a beer out. You know, come on, Rattlesnake, give us a whiskey. You want to? If we're going to have to deal with celebrity whiskeys, we might as well be for people who we think could drink some frickin' whiskey. Come on, Steve, get us some whiskey. 316 bourbon.
You know who I would like to see? Who I would actually, you know, because I know he would tie it to a good cause. Is I'd like to see Mike Rowe put out a whiskey to raise money for his whole Mike Rowe Works things.
Yeah, and I could totally see that.
He's a beer guy. He drinks whiskey. He's not going to ever say he's a connoisseur. He's too humble about that. Even if he he wouldn't admit it. But for him to release one to fund his initiatives, that was the reason he was doing it, not a vanity play. I'd be down with that. That'd be cool. Well, guys, if you think you know a celebrity that would make sense, let us know, podcast@bourbonbanter.com. Until then, we're going to keep professing our hatred of all things celebrity-related until someone convinces us. And, hey, you know, if you were tuning into the craft shoot earlier, you'll learn that, we can change our minds, right? We didn't like any Texas whiskeys, and now there's one that we kind of thought was kind of cool and kind of interesting. So we're honest, and if we call something out and we change our minds, we're proven differently, we will admit it on air in front of everybody. So let's move on, because this one I think is going to be a hot topic here. And so if you have been following the news, and GameStop has been the topic du jour for anybody interested in finance, with some hedge funds losing $25 billion plus for shorting the stock when some Redditors decided, well, no, you're not going to do that. We're really going to piss you off this year. And they have been driving the stock price up. I think it started at $4. It's over $200 now. So nothing would seem more exciting than GameStop. But I'll tell you what, there is a new investment opportunity on the horizon that came across our desk. And I think it quite frankly could be the investment opportunity of the decade in whiskey, at least from a debate perspective. And that is the Cleveland Whiskey Investment Fund. Just going to pause with that. Can't believe I'm
the
fucking
collaboration bourbon with the Thanksgiving ingredients and shit wasn't good enough to launch a fucking investment fund for Cleveland whiskey. Come on.
And this is not parody, folks. This is legit. Cleveland Whiskey has an investment fund where you can invest your hard-earned dollars in their growth. Now, we have not been fans of their whiskey, right? We're not fans of most hyper-aging things, but we've actually tried the product and weren't a fan of it. And sure, we had some fun with them with the Thanksgiving Day project, which apparently their master distiller thought was a great concept, so he's going to make something to do it, even if it's not a mass release. So we can't wait for that, and I guess we'll have to try it, is no matter what it tastes like. If we throw it out, hey, if someone acts or what we throw out there, we're going to do, right? But that's fun. But though have started a sort of like a Kickstarter, if you will, where you can invest in Cleveland whiskey, and they're seeking money to grow it. So the fund is on wefunder.com. That's WEFUNDER.com, wefunder.com. Search for Cleveland whiskey. They've raised almost $775,000. So the fact that we think it's funny doesn't mean that everybody does. So
$750,000 already?
$750,000 from 347 individual investors. And basically, it's a pretty interesting concept. There's a couple bourbon funds out there, whiskey funds out there, just like there have been wine. But this one is a loan-backed loan. It's a loan with optional whiskey conversion. So it's an asset-backed fixed return note at 5% interest with a whiskey conversion option that yields 170% overall return. So I am not a financial person. I don't play one on TV. I barely play one in my own personal finances. But what this means is for the whiskey bond that they're doing is you invest money, all right, and it's a 6-year bond that will pay 5% simple interest, okay, and that's a guaranteed return. So if you loan them the money, you're going to get 5%. I don't believe that's 5% per year. I think it's 5% over the duration of the 6-year bond, right? If you don't want the cash back, you can convert that with whiskey that's bottled upon maturity. So in that case, you'll actually get more than your 5%. You'll get whiskey equivalent to up to 170% of your initial investment, and the number of bottles you get will obviously be based on the value of the whiskey at that time. So if you are a fan of Cleveland whiskey and you believe in their whiskey, this is a no-brainer. I mean, quite frankly, if you believe in the brand and you like the whiskey, you'll get 5% over 6 years, or you can have the whiskey and they will, I think, bottle it and will even label it like custom labels. So if you want to be a mini NDP, non-distiller producer, you can release something from them as well. So they've got big expansion plans. They've got a great investment deck that they've done. I mean, they put a really lot of thought to it. So once again, I don't care for their whiskey, but they are sharp in terms of businesses and where they're hoping to scale and go. So, but for me, the question is, and I'd love listener feedback is, are these really good investments? I mean, what happens, right? So everybody thinks whiskey's going to go up, up, and up. But then Dutch thought the tulips were going to go up, up, and up, right? And eventually it burst. So what happens if there's a glut, right? I mean, this is guaranteed 5% regardless of that. But I know other funds, the value of the return is attached to the stock, right? The whiskey that gets made. So I'm curious. I mean, Bob, take the brand aside. Would you invest in something like this?
No, I wouldn't. It's $1,000 minimum investment. And, you say take the brand aside. I can't take the brand aside. Number one, who wants a minimum of $1,000 worth of fucking Cleveland whiskey, much less $1,700 paid out over 6 years? You know something? If it's shitty now, that same whiskey in 6 years is still probably going to be shitty. Because in 6 years, they're going to go from, making a 5-year whiskey in, 3 weeks to a 5-year whiskey in 3 days. It's going to be even worse. So, no, it's called bourbon bullshit for a reason. This is bullshit.
All right, let me play devil's advocate here. We talked a little bit about this earlier from another conversation, right? Is you and I have been drinking whiskey for a long time. A lot of our listeners have been doing the same thing, right? So we have a certain standard on what we consider good whiskey. So take someone who's 23 years old, never had whiskey in their life, right? And
take them and do what with them?
Huh?
Take them and do what with them?
Like hold on. I'm getting there.
Oh, okay. Throw them across the street.
That's right.
Throw them down the hill.
Imagine a 23-year-old person who wants to try whiskey, and they try Cleveland whiskey because they're in Cleveland, right? And someone says, you should try this. And they try it, and they're like, oh, okay. They've never had whiskey, so whiskey's a little jarring to begin with, right? And they're like, okay, and they try it. And they're like, I'll try it again and again. Much like when I got into bourbon, the first time I drank bourbon, it wasn't love at first sip. It took a little while to work at it. So you have people, and Cleveland's not the only brand. A lot of craft distillers fall into this category too, the ones that we talk about being too green and not ready. People drink them, they get into it, and they like it, right? Because they haven't got to the point of understanding what, and this is arguable, right, what a bourbon should taste like, right? Should bourbon even have it should taste like this? That's a whole discussion episode there. But my point is that people are buying this. They're making money. They're making a couple $1 million a year selling this Cleveland whiskey with upward trajectories and patterns to match, right? They wouldn't be getting this investment if they didn't have a good plan. So, at the end of the day, does it matter? I mean, once again, you're not going to do it, and I'm not going to do it because, first of all, we don't have a bunch of money to throw around. But if you were looking at an investment, I wonder if this holds, if this holds water for people. And is this a smart play, not only because of who they are, but more importantly, just the category? Because I see all these funds popping up, and the question is, will these things really pay out?
That's my thing. And I don't know shit about investments, but that's, although I do know that a guaranteed investment is the Bourbon and Banter Patreon page, ladies and gentlemen. But I would think if you're guaranteed 5%, it's not a huge payout, and it's on a whiskey that you don't know is going to be around. I mean, they're only distributed in 16 states right now, so who knows? But I would pass.
Right.
Taking the brand out of it, taking the business model, and knowing how they make their whiskey as compared to everybody else in the industry would make me want to pass if I was going in not knowing anything about the actual, label.
Right.
Okay. Well, this is a it's a fast cook whiskey. They do this. It's like, okay, well, that could get tiring really, really quick, or it could go south really, really quick.
Right.
So it's like, look at vodka 15 years ago, and it was, all the rage. And 5 years later, all of it's like a third the price it used to be. So,
well, it's fair enough.
It could happen to that.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking to raise $7.9 million total. That will come from a variety of sources, not just from this WeFunder program, but big plans. And, obviously I like to see anybody succeed. And we can have some fun at their expense on the podcast and whatnot. But, obviously we want business to succeed and do things. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if you've invested in this, once again, we'd love to hear your thoughts on why you did, why it was a good investment. So podcast at bourbonbanter.com, drop us a note, and maybe educate a little bit why this isn't a bad idea. Give us some inside knowledge to the market, things of that nature. But I think really, at some point there's going to have to be some sort of contraction to the market. And the question becomes, which end gets squeezed the most? The entry level, which is what Cleveland fits into, right? So all the people move into the category, or the diehard drinkers like ourselves. Where's the pinch going to be felt the most? I would say, since growth always comes from the broad base of newbies, this is going to be at risk a little bit more than the people buying Knob Creek at 14 years old. So, and once again, weigh in, let us know. But I think it's an interesting topic nonetheless, and we'll wait and see. And meanwhile, guys, if you're holding on to some GameStop stock, good luck. Don't hold it too long, because what we know at the end of the day is either the government's going to get involved or the big motherfuckers are going to make a move, and everybody's going to be left holding the bag.
Hey, they don't like the regular guy manipulating the stock market. That's only for the rich assholes to do. So we know that they're going to come and find a way to stop this shit.
Yeah. So be careful out there. Money is hard won, and you should be careful to protect it. But as Bob said, which I didn't even prompt him to do so, patreon.com/bourbonbanter. If you like what we're doing, you like our mission, if you want Bob to quit his day job, fund us. And we'll be glad to invest your money in things that matter, more reviews, more content. And when we get back to being able to meet people in person, maybe even get around and to your fair city and host a hangout and things of that nature. We still, like I said, we've got some big things planned, and we hope that you will all stick around for that. Do us a favor, though. We really want you to, if you're enjoying the podcast, do a couple things for us. Number one, pat yourself on the back. You're well-informed. You believe in honesty, integrity. Number two, please share the link to the podcast with people you knew. Share it on social media. The more the people that listen, the better that we feel, and the night sweats will stop. And most importantly, go to our podcast.bourbonbanter.com page, click on the Apple link, and go to the Apple podcast and leave us a review. Let us know how much you're enjoying it. Give us maximum stars, and you might just be featured in a social media post.
Now, one thing I'm going to leave this segment with that I have seen recently, Morgan Freeman has popped out and said that he's going to raise money for charity, and he's going to, they're going to do an auction off or something where he will call and prank someone for you. If you've got somebody you want to prank, or you just want to tell off, you want to tell them what you think, Morgan Freeman will call your friend and do that. Well, Bourbon and Banter will offer the same thing. If you're interested, if you need to give someone some bad news, feel free to contact us, podcast@bourbonandbanter.com, and I will be happy to deliver that bad news to whoever it is that you want. You want to fire somebody? call me. I'll be happy to do it for you. It's a nominal fee.
Of just an email. It doesn't get any more nominal than that. Drop us a note. We'll pick, and give us the reason, and we'll pick a winner. And, Bob's got his awesome radio voice, but he can pretty much do whatever you want. So, if you need us to be creative, it can be done. So, and hey, bad news, delivered by guys who drink whiskey is never bad news. So we'll help you out of a tight job.
True.
So, guys, thanks for making it to the end of episode 11. Bob and I, as always, appreciate you listening to us, spreading the word, and helping the world drink curious. So once again, make sure you sign up for our newsletter. We got lots of great barrel picks this year coming out. If you're on the list, you get first access, and if there's anything left, we open it up. If you want to sponsor us, go to patreon.com/Bourbon Banter. Otherwise, we're on all the social channels at Bourbon Banter. So until the next show, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Bob and myself, thank you very much. And remember, if you're going to drink
curious.
Well, what's your preference?
Bourbon, if you got it.
Bourbon from Kentucky.
I should certainly fucking hope so.